Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
co-founder Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs.
The year is 2007. San Francisco is buzzing with anticipation. Crowds of journalists and tech enthusiasts have gathered outside the Moscone Center. Inside, on stage, stands a man in a black turtleneck and jeans. He holds in his hands a device that will change the world. Today, Apple reinvents the phone, he says, and the room erupts in applause. This man is Steve Jobs, a visionary, a marketing genius, and a driving force in the world of technology. He didn't just create products, he shaped the future. But the path to this moment of triumph was long and arduous. Today, we'll tell the story of a boy put up for adoption who became one of the most influential people in the tech world. We'll learn how Jobs built and lost the Apple empire, only to return and save it from collapse. We'll uncover his contradictory personality, which both fascinated and repelled those around him. Are you ready to discover what lay behind the legendary presentations and innovative products? Then buckle up. This story will not only change your perception of the man who changed the world, but it will also make you think about the price of success and the boundaries of genius. Perhaps, in the end, you'll ask yourself, was Steve Jobs' path the only way to achieve such heights, or his methods are a cautionary tale for future innovators? Stephen Paul Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco. His biological mother, Joanne Schiebel, was a young, unmarried graduate student, and his father, Abdul Fattah Jandali, was a Syrian graduate student. Unprepared for parenthood and facing resistance from Schiebel's family, they decided to put their baby up for adoption at the San Francisco Children's Home Society. Joanne initially wanted her son to be adopted by a couple with a college education. A lawyer and his wife were supposed to take the child, but at the last moment, they refused, deciding they wanted a girl. This is how Steve ended up in the family of Paul and Clara Jobs, a working-class couple from Mountain View, California. Joanne initially refused to sign the adoption papers when she learned that neither Paul nor Clara had a college degree. She only agreed after the Jobs made a written promise to pay for Steve's college education. This promise would play a key role in shaping the future tech genius. Steve's childhood was spent in Silicon Valley, which didn't yet bear that iconic name. The area was filled with engineers and technicians working on cutting-edge electronic devices. Little Steve, observing the work of his father, who was a mechanic and carpenter, absorbed a love for technology and design. This environment, combined with the promise of his adoptive parents to give him a higher education, laid the foundation for Jobs' future innovations. Steve Jobs' relationship with his adoptive parents was complex and multifaceted. Paul and Clara Jobs showered Steve with love and care, but the fact of his adoption always remained an essential part of his identity. Jobs knew about his adoption from early childhood. His parents were honest with him about this, which on the one hand helped to avoid a traumatic revelation later in life. On the other hand, this knowledge instilled in young Steve a sense of otherness and some alienation. Jobs' feeling of being chosen was connected to the fact that his parents told him how carefully they had chosen him. This created a feeling in Steve that he was a special child, specifically chosen by his parents. However, this also raised questions about his biological parents and the reasons why they had given him up. The duality of feelings, being both chosen and rejected, created an internal conflict that Jobs carried throughout his life. This was reflected in his character, shaping both his striving for perfection and recognition and his sometimes harsh attitude towards others. Despite the love of his adoptive parents, Jobs often felt like an outsider in his family. His intellectual abilities and interests differed significantly from those of his parents, which amplified his sense of alienation. This internal struggle largely determined his desire for self-realization and finding his place in the world. At school, Steve proved to be an exceptionally gifted but difficult student. His intelligence and charisma often turned into problems. He was bored in class, played pranks, and was expelled from several schools. "I was a real pain in the ass," Jobs recalled. A turning point came when his fourth-grade teacher, Mrs. Hill, saw potential in the troubled student. She bribed Steve, offering him $5 for every math problem he solved. This approach worked, and Jobs began to study with renewed enthusiasm. In his teenage years, Steve developed an interest in electronics and computers. He attended lectures at Hewlett-Packard after school, where he met his future Apple co-founder, Steve Wozniak. They were united by their love of electronics and pranks. In 1971, when Jobs was 16 and Wozniak was 21, they created blue boxes, devices the size of a deck of cards that generated special tones to trick the telephone system and make free long-distance calls. These devices, based on a schematic published in Esquire magazine, were illegally sold to students for about $150 each. Jobs and Wozniak sold about 100 such devices, which became their first joint business venture. After graduating from high school in 1972, Jobs enrolled at Reed College in Portland, Oregon. However, he dropped out after one semester, deciding that it was too expensive for his adoptive parents, $58,000 per year. Nevertheless, he continued to attend classes that interested him, including a calligraphy course, which later inspired him to create multiple fonts for the first Macintosh. During this period, Jobs experimented with LSD, believing that this experience was one of the 2 or 3 most important things in his life. He was looking for new ways of self-expression and understanding himself, which led him to study Zen Buddhism and travel to India in search of enlightenment. These experiences not only expanded his consciousness, but also shaped his unique worldview, which was later reflected in his approach to design and business. Jobs believed that psychedelics helped him see the world from a new perspective, which contributed to his creativity and innovative thinking. Upon returning to California, Jobs got a job as a technician at Atari, where his task was to simplify the circuitry of the popular game Breakout. He involved his friend Steve Wozniak in the work, without mentioning the $100 bonus for each chip eliminated, which eventually amounted to $5,000. Jobs told Wozniak that they were paid only $700 and gave him $350. Wozniak, working almost without sleep, created a circuit using only 45 chips, which significantly exceeded Atari's expectations. However, Jobs, striving for quick profit, did not share the whole truth about his income with him. This episode was the first manifestation of Jobs' complex character, his tendency to manipulate, and his ability to benefit from the situation, which later became a characteristic feature of his management style and interaction with partners. 1976 was a turning point in Steve Jobs' life. Together with Steve Wozniak, they founded Apple Computer in Jobs' parents' garage. Their first product, the Apple I, was essentially a computer board that buyers had to place in a case themselves and connect to a monitor and keyboard. The idea to create the company arose after Wozniak demonstrated his creation at the Homebrew Computer Club, and Jobs saw the commercial potential in this device. Jobs proved himself a natural entrepreneur. He organized a demonstration of the Apple I for Paul Terrell, owner of the local electronics store, The Byte Shop. Terrell liked the idea of a fully assembled computer board, although he would have preferred a fully assembled computer. Despite this, he placed an order for 50 computers at $500 each, with payment upon delivery. This was the first major order for Apple and a key moment in the company's history. To fulfill the order, Jobs mortgaged his Volkswagen microbus, and Wozniak sold his beloved HP 65 scientific calculator. They assembled the first batch in 30 days, working almost around the clock in Jobs' parents' garage. The success of the Apple I inspired Jobs and Wozniak to create the Apple II, the first personal computer in an elegant plastic case with color graphics. This product revolutionized the market for several reasons. It was the first fully assembled personal computer with a color display, had a built-in keyboard, and could be connected to a regular TV. In addition, the first killer app was developed for the Apple Sexit, the VisiCalc spreadsheet program, which made the computer attractive for business and led to explosive sales growth. These innovations and ease of use made Apple the industry leader, surpassing competitors like Commodore and Tandy. Rapid sales growth and profit attracted the attention of investors. By 1980, Apple's revenue reached $117 million, making the company attractive for an initial public offering, IPO. On December 12, 1980, Apple held its IPO, issuing 4.6 million shares at a price of $22 per share. The shares were sold out within minutes, and by the end of the trading day, their price had risen to $29, making the company worth $1.778 billion. As a result of this IPO, 25-year-old Steve Jobs, who owned 7.5 million shares, became a multimillionaire overnight with a fortune of over $217 million. However, success had a downside. Jobs became known for his quick temper and harsh management style. By 1983, Apple employed around 1,000 people, and Jobs ran the company with ruthless intensity. He could fire an employee in an elevator for not giving an enthusiastic enough answer to a question about a current project. His perfectionism bordered on obsession. He could make the team rework a product at the last minute because of a shade of color or the curve of the case. In 1983, Jobs poached John Scully from Pepsi-Cola to become Apple's CEO, uttering the famous phrase, "Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want to come with me and change the world?" This This move would later prove fatal for Jobs himself, as Scully, initially brought in to bring corporate management experience, would eventually become a key figure in Jobs' removal from the company's leadership. 1984 was marked by the release of the Macintosh, a computer that defined the future of personal computers with its graphical interface and mouse. The Satie 1,984 inches commercial, shown during the Super Bowl, became a classic of the advertising industry. The 60-second commercial, directed by Ridley Scott, depicted an Orwellian world where the Macintosh was presented as a liberator from conformity, personified by IBM. The culmination of the commercial was the moment when an athletic woman smashes a screen with a hammer depicting Big Brother, symbolizing the destruction of the old order. However, despite the Macintosh's innovativeness and the success of the advertising campaign, the high price and limited capabilities of the first Macs led to disappointing sales. Disagreements between Jobs and Scully grew against the backdrop of falling Macintosh sales and Apple's deteriorating financial position. Jobs insisted on lowering the price of the Macintosh and increasing the marketing budget, which could undermine the company's profitability. Scully, on the contrary, believed it was necessary to cut costs and focus on the more profitable Apple second line. The conflict reached its peak in May 1985. Jobs, learning about Scully's plans to reorganize the company, attempted to stage a coup to oust Scully as CEO. However, his plan failed when Scully found out about it, called an emergency meeting of the board of directors. At this meeting, the board sided with Scully. On May 17, 1985, Scully and the board of directors stripped Jobs of all managerial authority, leaving him only the ceremonial position of chairman of the board. For the next few months, Jobs was in limbo, formally remaining with the company, but having no real influence. Finally, on September 13, 1985, Jobs resigned from Apple. He sold all his shares in the company, except for one, which he kept so he could attend shareholder meetings. This was a heavy blow for Jobs. In his 2005 Stanford University commencement speech, he recalled this period. "I had been fired from the company I started. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me." After leaving Apple, Jobs didn't give up. He founded a new company, Next Computer, aimed at creating workstations for education and business. Although Next computers were not commercially successful due to their high price, the initial cost was $6,500, and in retail it reached $9,999. They were technologically advanced. The high price was due to the use of quality components, innovative design, and the powerful Next Step operating system. On one of these computers, Tim Berners-Lee developed the World Wide Web, which ushered in a new era on the Internet. The World Wide Web is a system of interconnected hypertext documents accessed through the Internet, which made information more accessible and revolutionized the way people communicate and exchange data. In parallel with Next, in 1986, Jobs bought the computer graphics division from Lucasfilm for $10 million, transforming it into Pixar. Initially, the company was engaged in the production of high-performance computers for 3D animation, but after a series of failures associated with high cost and limited demand, it focused on creating animated films. 1995 was a turning point for Jobs. Pixar released Toy Story, the first full-length computer animated film, which grossed $373.5 million worldwide on a budget of $30 million. This success not only made the film the highest grossing in 1995, but also led to Pixar's stock, which went public on November 29, 1995, rising almost fourfold, making Jobs a billionaire. As a result, Pixar earned significant funds, and by 2019, its feature films grossed about $14 billion worldwide. At the same time, Apple was going through hard times. The company was losing money and market share. In search of a new operating system, Apple turned its attention to Next. In 1997, Apple bought Next for $429 million, and Jobs returned to the company as interim CEO. John Scully had left the position in 1993. He later expressed regret about how things turned out and acknowledged that Jobs was a key factor in Apple's success. Jobs' return marked the beginning of a new era for Apple. He carried out a radical restructuring, canceling most projects and focusing on creating innovative products. The first successful product was the iMac, released in 1998, which featured a bright design and ease of use. The iMac became a hit, selling over 6 million units and contributing to the restoration of Apple's financial position. Jobs also entered into an important partnership partnership with Microsoft when Bill Gates invested $150 million in Apple, which stabilized the company. This decision caused dissatisfaction among loyal Apple fans, but helped strengthen the financial base. In the following years, Jobs led the digital revolution with the launch of the iPod in 2001 and the iTunes Store in 2003. The iPod became the best-selling music player, with over 400 million units sold by 2014, and the iTunes Store changed the music industry, providing easy access to millions of tracks. Thus, Jobs' return to Apple not only saved the company from collapse, but also led to the creation of a number of successful products that shaped the future of technology and entertainment. 2007 was marked by the release of the iPhone, a device that Jobs called a magical product. The iPhone combined a mobile phone, an iPod, and an internet communicator. Its revolutionary touch interface and app ecosystem changed not only the smartphone industry, but also how people interact with technology. The first iPhone was equipped with a 3.5-inch touchscreen, a 2-megapixel camera, and had 4 or 8 GB of internal memory. It ran on the iOS operating system and included the Safari browser for web browsing. An important feature was integration with iTunes, which made it easy to synchronize content. However, when talking about the iPhone's innovations, it's important to note that many ideas were not entirely original. The concept of a touchscreen already existed. Apple acquired Fingerworks in 2005, which was already developing multi-touch technologies. The icon-based interface resembled existing PDAs, especially devices running Palm OS. The idea of combining a phone and a player was implemented in earlier devices, such as some Sony Ericsson models. The iPhone presentation became a classic of the genre. Jobs masterfully created tension, gradually revealing the capabilities of the device. When he demonstrated how you could scroll through the contact list with one finger, the audience erupted in applause. "Did you get that? I just used my finger," exclaimed Jobs, emphasizing the innovativeness of the interface. The iPhone's success was phenomenal. 270,000 devices were sold in the first weekend. By 2010, the iPhone accounted for almost 40% of Apple's revenue, and the company became the most valuable technology firm in the world. In 2010, Jobs introduced the iPad, a tablet computer that he said filled the space between a smartphone and a laptop. Despite initial skepticism, many compared the iPad to a large iPhone. The device quickly gained popularity, creating a new product category. It's important to note that the idea of a tablet computer was not new either. Microsoft and other companies had been experimenting with this concept for years. However, Apple managed to create a product that found mass acceptance thanks to its user-friendly interface and app ecosystem. Jobs and Apple were often accused of borrowing ideas and technologies. For example, the Macintosh's graphical interface was inspired by developments at Xerox PARC. However, Jobs' supporters argued that his genius lay not in inventing from scratch, but in the ability to see the potential of existing technologies and turn them into mass products that are convenient for users. Ultimately, while many of Apple's ideas weren't entirely original, the company, under Jobs' leadership, was able to refine, integrate, and bring them to market as revolutionary products that changed entire industries. Steve Jobs' personal life was no less complex and contradictory than his career. In the 1970s, Jobs had a romantic relationship with Chrisanne Brennan, whom he met in high school at Homestead High. Their relationship was turbulent and unstable. They often broke up and got back together. In 1978, Chrisanne gave birth to a daughter, Lisa. Jobs, however, denied paternity for several years, even despite a positive paternity test. This decision was connected to his complete immersion in working on Apple and, possibly, unpreparedness for fatherhood at such a young age. He named the Lisa computer after his daughter, but publicly denied this connection, claiming that the name was an acronym for Local Integrated Software Architecture. Jobs and Brennan's relationship finally broke down shortly after Lisa's birth. Jobs was completely focused on the development of Apple, and Brennan was left alone with the child, forced to rely on social assistance. Despite Jobs' financial success, he provided minimal support for his daughter and ex-girlfriend for a long time. Only years later, already in a relationship with Laureen Powell, Jobs began to build a relationship with Lisa. He acknowledged his paternity and became more actively involved in his daughter's life. Lisa even lived with the Jobs family for some time during her teenage years. In 1989, Jobs met Laureen Powell at a lecture he gave at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Their relationship developed rapidly, and in 1991, they married in a Buddhist ceremony in Yosemite National Park. The couple had 3 children, a son, Reed, and daughters Erin and Eve. Despite his public persona in business, years. Jobs tried to keep his family out of the media spotlight. He rarely spoke about his family life in interviews and tried to shield his children from excessive press attention. This desire for privacy was perhaps a reaction to his own experience as a public figure and a desire to give his children a more normal childhood. In 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer, a neuroendocrine tumor. Despite doctors' recommendations for immediate surgery, Jobs tried to treat himself with alternative methods for 9 months. His decision was driven by several factors. Jobs had long been a vegetarian and believed in the power of natural remedies. He was also wary of invasive medical procedures and wanted to avoid surgery. In addition, Jobs was known for his reality distortion field, the ability to convince himself and others of anything, which may have affected his assessment of the seriousness of the situation. Among the alternative treatments that Jobs used was a strict vegan diet with an emphasis on freshly squeezed juices and so-called superfoods. He also resorted to acupuncture and other methods of traditional Chinese medicine. Jobs experimented with hydrotherapy and other spa treatments, consulted with psychics and healers. Psychological therapy and meditation played an important role in his approach to treatment. This decision may have cost him his life. When he finally agreed to surgery, the cancer had already spread. Doctors later noted that if Jobs had immediately agreed to the operation, his chances of recovery would have been significantly higher. Despite his illness, Jobs continued to lead Apple, appearing in public increasingly emaciated. His obsession with work did not weaken even in the face of death. In 2009, he underwent a liver transplant in Memphis, Tennessee. This operation caused controversy, as many believed that Jobs used his wealth and influence to obtain the organ faster than would have been possible for an ordinary patient. Despite the complex operation and a long recovery period, Jobs continued to work on new Apple products, including the iPad, which was released in 2010. On August 24, 2011, Jobs resigned as CEO of Apple, handing over the reins to Tim Cook. In his farewell letter, he wrote, "I have always said, if there ever came a day when I could no longer meet my duties and expectations as Apple's CEO, I would be the first to let you know. Unfortunately, that day has come." Steve Jobs died on October 5, 2011, at the age of 56. His last words, spoken on his deathbed, were, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." What exactly he saw or realized in his last moments remained a mystery. Jobs' personality was full of contradictions. He possessed a unique gift of foresight, the ability to anticipate the future of technology and create products that people didn't yet know they needed. This ability was the result of a combination of several factors. Firstly, Jobs had a deep understanding of human psychology and needs. He intuitively felt that people want simplicity and elegance in technology, even if they themselves had not yet realized it. Secondly, his broad outlook, which included interests ranging from calligraphy to Zen Buddhism, allowed him to see connections between seemingly unrelated areas and apply these ideas in technology. Finally, his experience in various technology companies gave him a unique understanding of the industry and its trends. However, this same personality could be cruel, selfish, and manipulative. These character traits were largely due to his pursuit of perfection and his conviction that he was right. Jobs believed that only he knew what was best for consumers and the company, and he was willing to do anything to bring his vision to life. His perfectionism often led to harsh demands on employees and partners, and his charisma and reality distortion field allowed him to manipulate people, convincing them of the possibility of the impossible. This same self-confidence sometimes bordered on selfishness, when Jobs ignored the opinions of others and insisted on his own way, even if it harmed relationships or business. Former Apple employees often recalled Jobs' outbursts of anger and his tendency toward public humiliation. He could not hesitate to call someone's work complete shit in front of the entire team. His pursuit of perfection often bordered on tyranny. There is a known case when he forced a team of designers to redesign the iMac case overnight, just because he didn't like the shade of blue. His attitude toward charity also raised many questions. Unlike other tech billionaires such as Bill Gates, Jobs was not known for his philanthropy. When he returned to Apple in 1997, one of his first decisions was to close all the company's charitable programs. He argued that the best way to help society is to make Apple profitable. Jobs' influence on the world of technology is difficult to overestimate. He didn't just create products, he shaped culture. The iPhone changed not only the smartphone industry, but also how we communicate, work, and entertain ourselves. Under his leadership, Apple transformed from an ordinary technology company into a true symbol of lifestyle. People were willing to stand in line for hours to be the first to buy the new iPhone or iPad on release day. Apple products became not just gadgets, but symbols of status and style. Jobs had a revolutionary impact on several industries at once. In the field of personal computers, the Apple II and Macintosh made computing accessible to ordinary people. In the world of animation, Pixar, under his leadership, created the first full-length computer-animated film, forever changing the film industry. In the music industry, the iPod and iTunes Store revolutionized the way music is distributed and consumed. The iPhone set a new standard for smartphones, and the iPad created a completely new category of devices. Jobs was also an unsurpassed master of marketing and presentations. His speeches at Apple conferences became legendary. He could create incredible hype around a product with just one phrase, as he did with the iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket. The life of Steve Jobs offers a number of important lessons for entrepreneurs and innovators. His approach to business and creativity demonstrates the importance of continuous self-improvement and a willingness to challenge established norms. Jobs taught us the importance of focus. He believed that success comes from being able to say no to 1,000 things in order to focus on what really matters. This was reflected in the simplification of Apple's product line after his return to the company. Another key lesson from Jobs is the importance of creating a superior user experience. He believed that technology should not just be functional, but also intuitive, even beautiful. This led to revolutionary changes in the design of consumer electronics. Jobs also emphasized the importance of an interdisciplinary approach. He believed that true innovation occurs at the intersection of technology and the humanities. This principle was at the heart of his approach to product development at Apple and Pixar. Finally, Jobs taught us the importance of passion in work. He often said that the only way to do great work is to love what you do. This philosophy helped him overcome numerous obstacles and failures on the road to success. Steve Jobs was a figure who not only changed the world of technology, but also left an indelible mark on the culture of our time. His life was full of ups and downs, triumphs and defeats, but each stage of this journey shaped the legend we know today. Jobs was not perfect. His character was often described as complex and contradictory. He could be ruthless in his decisions, selfish in his actions, and cruel in his words. But these same traits, combined with his indomitable passion for innovation and perfection, allowed him to create products that changed our world. From the first Apple computer assembled in a garage to the iPhone that changed the way we interact with information, Jobs always strived to ensure that technology was not just functional, but also beautiful, intuitive, almost magical. His approach to business was as innovative as his products. Jobs understood that to create truly great things, it's not enough to just do your job well. You need to be obsessed with it. He demanded perfection from himself and others. And although this path was not always easy, the results spoke for themselves. Perhaps Jobs' greatest legacy is not any particular product or invention, but how he changed our attitude towards technology. He showed that they can be not just tools, but an extension of our personality, a means of self-expression and creativity. In his famous speech to Stanford graduates in 2005, Jobs said,
"Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life."
These words perhaps best reflect Jobs' philosophy. He lived by his own rules, followed his vision, and ultimately changed the world. The story of Steve Jobs is not just a success story, it's a story about the importance of believing in your ideas. Even when the whole world doubts you, it's a story about the power of innovation and how an obsession with perfection can lead to the creation of products that change the lives of millions of people. And now, we would like to hear your opinion. What aspect of Steve Jobs' personality do you think played the biggest role in his success? His vision, his pursuit of perfection, or perhaps his ability to inspire others? And did his childhood influence who he became? Or was it genes, a gift, or other factors? Do you believe that Jobs' management methods, despite their controversy, were justified by the results he achieved? Or do you think that the same results could have been achieved with less harsh methods? And finally, which product or innovation of Steve Jobs had the greatest impact on your life? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Your comments help us create content that you find interesting, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next episode.